What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the morning segment. And I know what you're saying, Nick, it's afternoon. Well, this is the morning segment, afternoon edition. Alright, so, last night we got the Walking Dead season finale. I'm gonna say, the episode actually shocked me. Now, this isn't just this isn't my talk about the final episode. This is just me talking about what I thought of the whole season. If you all have went back and watched my morning segment reviews about this season, me and with my friend Brandon Davis, of course, you know, who was on an episode of the morning segment, we both thought Glenn was going to die. They hinted at it in the trailer, they hinted at it in the show at least 2 or 3 times, and still, Glenn is alive, but they did actually know. They hinted with him dying, for those who've read the comics, they hinted at Glenn dying with the baseball bat at least twice in the first episode. I really thought Glenn was going to die because when they were at Terminus and they were showing trailers of like with this guy with a baseball bat, and I was like, that's it, he's going to die. He is going to die. But no, actually a lot of people, including like it was me and Brandon and some other friends and I, we really thought that Glenn was going to die. Now, there was also talk that last night Norman Reedus was going to die. Like, he was going to get Glenn's death. And I was like, dude, that would be such a major twist. But overall of the season, I thought it was very good. They did so many hints at a lot of things. Like, the Saviors, who are Negan's people, they were introduced, but they're called the Wolves. And they are introduced when they reach this town, which was actually... They did that in the second season. And I was so disappointed with it. After I read the comic... where they go into that town, and they actually, in the comic, they actually stay in that town for like a day or two. And Rick goes around the town for a morning walk, and then he comes across a sign. It says, "Do not enter, all dead." And Rick just sees this humongous group of walkers, and they have to run and escape. Now, we got our first introduction to the Wolves after the mid-season finale, when The Walking Dead started back up, we started hinting at the Wolves, which are the Saviors. From what I'm guessing, and what my friend Marika was stating, that she found out that they actually changed the Saviors to the Wolves. So, but they introduced the Wolves, and they pace it very quickly. The very first thing we see is, for example, we see wolves coming out of the forest and attacking the people, attacking Rick and his group. Then there was at that town where they had on the wolves, like, the wolves are coming, or something like that. Then we got more hints with the W on the head, and, like, we've seen a bunch of stuff, like, with walkers being fed bait, like, with live people that were baited, and a bunch of walkers who, like, that were used for traps, they all had W's on their heads. And last night we got our first confrontation with the Wolves, with Morgan. Now there was some speculation that what if Morgan was Negan, but that's kind of stupid. I was actually even thinking that the minister, Father Gabriel, was going to turn out to be Negan. There was a scene last night where I actually thought they were going to introduce Negan when Glenn is on top of that Nick dude. It sees him looking up at something. I was like, oh crap, Negan. But no. The Wolves have been established. Like I said, the Wolves were established, and we got some build up, and they finally gave us the Wolves. But more overall, what I thought of this season. I loved what they did after Terminus. I loved how they introduced that one character. I think his name was Eric, the one who led them to Alexandria. I thought that was done very well. They did a lot of good things in the season. A lot of people are saying that this is the best season out of the show by far, but we'll see how they do season 6. I hated when Rick trimmed his beard. I couldn't stand it when Rick was shaving. I was like, no! But now, they did... my favorite thing about this season was Rick's famous line, "We are the Walking Dead." When he said it, I was like... I looked to my friend Brandon, he's like, he said it. Because at the end of, like, the first comic, or the first compendium, Rick says that line. He says, "We are the Walking Dead." And just to hear him finally say that line, I was like, yes, thank you. They did some good things with Daryl's character. I hated that Beth died. I guess that's what they were preparing Beth for. And I thought Glenn was going to die in the season because of how they were putting posters of Glenn and Maggie, and they were saying these guys are ready for The Walking Dead. And I was like, oh, obviously Glenn's dying in this season, but I was wrong. Very good. Very good, especially with Norman Reedus, because he was on a talk show and he's like, oh man, you guys are all going to need a tissue. They did a lot of hints that a lot of people were going to die, and no one died. We got introduced to Father Gabriel. He's a little bit different from how he was in the comics. They did something good with this character. They did bring up of how when the zombie apocalypse started, how he locked people out of the church to save his own skin. They did start that. And so I thought that was very good. I did not call Beth dying. I did not call that at all. I really did not. And it actually made me sad when she died. I'm glad they did not go with one of their original plans to bring Beth back. I was like, don't you dare do that. You killed her off. Do not bring her back. Now, they did actually bring her back for the episode when Tyrese died, and I thought that was a very good way of bringing her back. They also brought back those little kids from the 4th season, and it was very sad to see Tyrese die, but it was a very well handled scene. We got the most gruesome death from this whole show. It was from 2 weeks ago, and they were on a run, and as you all know, they were stuck in that revolving door, and just to see Noah get dragged out and munched on like a walker biting on the inside of his mouth, and Glenn actually had to watch that. I was like, oh my gosh, that was the most gruesome death that we had ever got from The Walking Dead. But overall, I think this was a good season. And I know I kind of just went into a review, but I really liked this season. It really shocked me. My predictions for next season. They have introduced the wolves already. They have to bring in Negan. I mean, I know it's too late to speculate anything because the season just ended, so we haven't gotten any news yet, but if they have already established the wolves, they have established that they're smart, that they're doing this. We've seen 2 wolf characters. Negan is going to have to show up the next season. Sometime around there. I honestly don't know how they could hold him off for another season. But I'm hoping that in the next season we actually there's a character called Jesus. And I was actually thinking we were going to get him in this season, but I think we'll get him next season. But because they have already introduced the wolves, like I said earlier, they have no excuse not to bring Negan back in unless they decide to. My prediction is at the latest, Negan will show up at the mid-season finale. He'll either kill Glenn or he'll kill Daryl. And that'll set us up for the final part of The Walking Dead. Which that would actually be a very smart idea. They've started setting up the wolves, and they've also started setting up Negan. They've done 2 hints at him. So from what I think is going to happen next season, we're going to get some more confrontation with the wolves. They're going to start the whole, we'll take care of you if you give us some of your supplies. And they did a very good job with that last night. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how the wolves operate. They're like, we want your stuff. It's the typical, we need your stuff to survive. We only care about ourselves and our group. Even though they didn't mention they were from a group, they captured that part perfectly, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. One thing I do hope that they do for Season 6 is I hope they explain how Morgan got back to his regular self. Because as you remember from Season 3, Morgan was like, I have to clear. I can't leave yet. I have to clear. He was out of his mind. And so I think that's going to be something that they have to establish. They brought us back Morgan, and they were showing him throughout the whole season. And I thought that was very clever, not having him and Reek intertwine with each other or see each other until the end of the season. I really enjoyed that. But here's the top things that I want to happen in season 6 of The Walking Dead. They establish how Morgan has changed and what made him change. Bring us Negan. Bring us the harshness of how Negan is, and do the famous death. Those are the 4 things I want to happen. And the best way that I can see that they do it is don't do it at the beginning of the series, like I thought they were going to do in season 5. Have it at the mid-season finale. You know, like they'll have Negan introduced at the end of an episode, and then it'll say like on the next episode of AMC, on the mid-season finale of AMC's The Walking Dead, have the episode either start or end with Negan beating either Daryl's brains out or Glenn's brains out, and focus on either Carol or Maggie. Now, actually with Sasha, I actually think if they kill Sasha off, she will die like Carol did in the comics. Where like she went crazy, and I was like, they're obviously, I was thinking that they were going to turn her into Carol, like when she was, and I thought it was really good. But that's my thoughts on The Walking Dead, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Put in the comments below, what did you think about The Walking Dead? Have a good night.